and discipline imposed on school children of all ages in TV6.
As night falls, the second unofficial side of the Japanese educational machine is just starting up in cities across Japan. Keiko is on her way to an institution that plays a major part in children's lives, the Juku. Jukus are the cramming schools Japanese children go to make sure they can pass the exams they need. They're privately run, highly profitable businesses. Jukus supplement the unstreamed egalitarian teaching of the schools with an even more exam-focused concentration. Tonight, it's a 2-hour class on the First World War and more.
He was assassinated at Sarajevo on June the 28th, 1914. That's called the Sarajevo Incident and was one of the causes of the First World War. Okay, the Crown Prince of Austria Serbian Act, and Austria declared war on Serbia, and that was how the First World War began.
In the last year of junior high school, over half the 15-year-olds in Japan, more in cities like Osaka and Tokyo, attend Juku. It's the crucial year because the 15+, the senior high school entrance exams, affect every child's future. It's a major family expense, an average of £1,500 a year. So long as other children are going, parents feel they have to send theirs. A short break for a takeaway supper. School isn't streamed, but the Jukus certainly are. There are courses for the children who are behind, for the average, and for the very cleverest in Mr. Maida's class. Just to improve concentration, he takes the register during a speeded-up maths test.
How long have we got, sir?
I know it says 25 minutes, but you're doing it in 20, okay?
The maths they're doing is around British A-level standard. The commitment from mothers needs to be just as great. In a coffee bar around the corner, Mrs. Psyche waits for her son to finish at 9:30 and then drives him the hour's journey back home.
It says always a battlefield, because we're always on the battlefield, always fighting against something. We must never slacken. We must always work hard and fight.
At 10 p.m., it's time for Keiko to head home. She stays this late 6 nights a week. At her stage, there's nothing particularly unusual about it. She still has to do her homework for school and Juku. She'll go to bed about 1. There's a bravado exhortation which children use. Pass with 4, fail with 5, referring to hours of sleep.
We have a phrase, examination hell, which we use in Japan. It's existed for quite a long time. The problem starts in elementary school, but it causes most concern at junior high school, where things are even more intense than at senior high. That's the trend in Japan.
It's
all juku, juku, juku. I feel it's terribly hard for them. I want most of all for my child to be brought up as a well-rounded human being. But children these days have to give up cultivating their characters, or they won't get through the exams. And I think that's a big worry for Japan.
Exams and tests set the pace in Japanese schools. They're trained to answer questions quickly under pressure of time. Within ordinary classwork, there are constant tests. There are regular national exams set by the ministry and school ability tests. But the climax is the senior high school entrance exam at the end of the third year. It's a carefully calibrated system that will separate children of different ability and send them in different directions when they leave Kozu. Keiko has her sights on one of the better senior high schools. Teachers know the form so well, they can predict which school a child has a chance of getting into. This is meant to reduce pressure and tension, but the pace still shows itself. Like every school, Kozu has a surgery. Many of the children who come to the nurse have symptoms related to tiredness for whatever reason. In Osaka, they talk about shindoi, which roughly translates as knackered. In the last month before they take the senior high school entrance, there are a series of mock exams building up to the real thing.
It was exhausting and very difficult, and now I've got a tummy ache. I think it's called junior high school syndrome. There was a lot of pressure and mental strain, and so it was tiring. And now I've got a tummy ache.
Everybody thinks that to get to a certain university, they must attend a certain senior high school, and to get there, must go to Juku and study late every night. And study, study, study to get good marks in their exams. The problem is that even if all children spend the same amount of time studying, they won't all reach the same level. But people shouldn't just be respected for knowing masses of facts. After all, education should also aim to transmit culture, to come up with new ideas, and to teach people to lead a fulfilled life.
Sports Day is a high point of every school's year. Individual winning is played down. The main contest is between competing classes. The important thing is taking part and perseverance. Saturday morning and school as usual. With 6 days a week and far shorter holidays, the Japanese child goes to school for 240 days of the year, compared with 193 days in Britain or 180 in the United States. It adds up to an additional year of education. In international comparisons of maths and science ability, Japanese children come highest in the world. With a far smaller variation between the best and the worst levels, they do work that's reckoned to be 2 years ahead of British children of 13. All Japanese children are taught algebra, quadratic equations and geometry. The fact that 9 out of 10 children do maths till they're 18 to a level not far below A level gives gives Japan its highly numerate workforce. On Saturday, lessons stop at lunchtime, but activities carry on. Kendo is another of the clubs, along with badminton and table tennis. The Brass Band Club is holding its 6th meeting of the week, but its ranks are depleted. Third-year children aren't allowed to take part in out-of-school activities for 6 months before their senior high school exams. Working at home, Keiko does another practice history test. And for children of all ages, Saturday afternoon is not a time for relaxation, but for even more hours at Juku. It's the peak period of the week, with some children doing a 6-hour stint from mid-afternoon to late evening. And naturally, Keiko goes too. Children mark each other's test papers. Even in history, the questions are multiple choice with one-word answers. You either know it or you don't. The emphasis is on factual knowledge or choosing the correct interpretation, not on expressing individual opinions.
Okay, who's got 100%? 90%? 80%? Just one person. 70%? 40%? Really? Only 40%?
Keiko doesn't know it this time. She'll have to study more to do well in her exams. At 10 on a Saturday night, Osaka mothers come to collect their exhausted children.
Even on my only day off a week, I'm not free to play, so I'm not too keen on that. Actually, I hate it, but there's nothing to be done about it.
Kozu, like other schools, turns a blind eye to the Jukus. They know the to them, but there's nothing they can do. Like the children and parents, they're all locked into the same competitive race. Mothers stay in close touch with the schools. They're invited to a talk given to the third year on what senior high school will be like and what will be expected.
You must have a clear aim in choosing a particular senior high school, whether it be an ordinary high school, or a vocational school, or whatever. If you don't, you run the risk of relaxing after the relief of being selected and slacking off. If you lead a sloppy lifestyle, not knowing when you should be studying or when you should be doing club activities, it means you're not a good student. That will be even more of a problem at senior high school. So I want you to get your priorities right and achieve a balance in life. In Japan, knowledge is growing all the time. But it is important to develop your physical fitness as well, if you are to grow properly and to mature. This is why you must play a full part in club activities. But after the club's finished, you mustn't mess around on your way home, nor must you hang around for ages at school. That's the sort of thing I mean by not having your priorities sorted out. Well, that's just about all I have to say.
It's much more difficult for fathers, themselves working 6 days a week, to get to the school. So there's an open day for parents held on a Sunday. Keiko's father comes with her mother and they watch their daughter's class in progress.
The boy who is singing the song is Sam.
The boy who is singing a song is Sam.
So many parents come that they overflow into the corridor. Though they push their children on the one hand, most parents are torn.
I wonder if all this allows their feelings and their bodies to develop properly. I know their minds are developing, but I really wonder about their bodies and their emotional development. They should all grow together. If only they could play more and learn about a greater variety of things and make more friends.
This is a time when they should be developing their feelings and enriching their humanity. But it isn't being used for that at all. And the evil effects of this on their spirits are going to show when they get older.
Within Japan, there is a growing debate about the real quality of children's education and whether it crushes individuality and creativity. Its critics say the education machine turns out pliant, unassertive, uniform minds on a conveyor belt. The pressure on children has grown since the war, with the increased competition and what they call examination hell.
We're on the verge of entering the 21st century, and we'll have to lead a very complicated life. And I think we should gear education towards that. The education we're providing, up to the 3rd year of junior high, will form the real basis for that life. It's quite frantic, because the children have to take so much in during this time. As well as covering all the fundamentals, there's the question of the children's individuality, which they must discover themselves. It's good if they can know themselves by the time they reach senior high school. But I don't think it's true to say that the entrance exam system crushes individuality at all.
The school year ends in March with graduation ceremonies at all the junior high schools. On important occasions, the Ministry of Education insists schools raise the flag and sing Kimi Gayo, the hymn to the emperor, which serves as a national anthem. It's to remind them of their Japanese-ness. Persistence, endurance, pushing on are virtues which are integral to Japanese culture, and the schools reflect this. In terms of mass literacy and numeracy, the schools have served the country brilliantly. But now there's a fear that they won't produce the original scientists and thinkers Japan will need in the future. The government has launched major reform commissions, but so far, nothing's been changed. The graduation ceremony is formal. It marks the importance of the transition children are making as they move to the next rung in Japanese society. The headmaster wears a tailcoat to hand a diploma to every leaver. They've come to the end of compulsory school. At this point, over half the children in Britain leave full-time education, most of them to look for work. In all Japan, it's 6%. The rest stay on at school. The few who do leave now will go to less secure jobs as delivery men or to work in very small businesses. Most production line jobs will be closed to them. Employers will say they're not the right material. But for the 94% who are going to stay on in education until they're 18, the paths divide. A quarter of them will go to senior high schools with a technical or commercial emphasis. They'll be able to learn engineering skills or a building trade while still keeping up maths and science. And they'll study computers before they go into the offices or the factories at 18. The majority of children will advance to normal academic senior high school, where the grind continues for university entrance exams. 60% of all Japanese children now go to some sort of higher education, 30% to university, a figure that's risen steadily. Keiko succeeded in getting into the senior high school she was aiming for. She's leapt the first big hurdle. There'll be more juku and more pressure on the way to university. Whatever the excesses, the real accomplishment of Japan's schools is not the creation of a university elite. It's the high level of schooling it gives to the mass of ordinary children and the way it prepares them for a modern industrial society.